Hey, be joyful. Good to be with you. We are back in 1 Peter. We're in chapter 4, verses 7 and 8. And in this section, Peter started this little series of statements about the Christian life. And each sentence is some instruction that's really important, very simple. If it was just applied by the church, by believers, it would make such a huge difference, I believe. Well, last time we talked about the first statement he made in verse 7 of chapter 4, and that was to be self-controlled. Certainly needed by myself, but and all of us, I'm sure. This one is just a lovely one. This is verse 8. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. So let's talk about that for a minute. I mean, what powerful and simple advice. And it reflects some of the advice he's given earlier in the book about love and relationships and caring for one another. We really need to remember, I need to remember, that this isn't for other people to apply. It's for me to apply. It's for me to bring into my life. Above all, love one another earnestly. It covers a multitude of sins. But let's break it down in just 30 seconds. Above all right, super high priority. Do not miss this, he says. Don't miss. Love is the thing. Okay, this is the thing. Keep loving. He says, be persistent in loving. Persistence through difficulty, regardless of how hard it is. Keep on loving. He says, then earnestly. There's an intensity to it. It's not just making this practical decision. Now, sometimes I realize, and certainly for all of us, that's what happens. But the intensity, the purposefulness is so critical for us to actually engage in loving one another in a way that makes the difference that he's talking about and the difference that we know matters so much. And then he uses that one another phrase. It's so important in the New Testament, and it has a broad meaning. You know, it means in your personal relationships. It means your relationships in the church. It goes to relationships in the community and further. Even as he says earlier in the book, it extends to our enemies. Love one another earnestly. And then he says this is the reason. It covers a multitude of sin. Now, does that mean that they had a sin problem they needed to have some like offset credits for? That's not what he's saying. But what he is saying is much more practical. And we know this when there's pain, when there's distrust, when there's anger, when there's factions, trouble, love described in the scripture, that kind of love, that brings relief. That brings health. That brings renewal. And the only way it happens is through relationship with Christ. So really, let me give you that as an application. This kind of love, earnest, consistent for everyone, even for our enemies, is love that comes because of a heart transformed by Christ. So let's get with him. Let's think about how we apply this and who we apply it to. And let's be the person that he's talking about in verse 8. All right. Talk to you next time.